Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Mike Elko era officially kicked off with Texas A&M playing out their spring game this Saturday afternoon. Dill, just wrapping up. Want to give some instant reactions to what we saw. And we kind of said heading into this one, this would be a very exciting spring game. Obviously, a new coaching staff, also a lot of new players added to this Texas A&M roster. I'm going to start it off with this. I took a lot of heat a couple of weeks ago, putting Texas A&M as a top 5 defense heading into 2024. After what I just saw the last 2 hours, I feel pretty good about that prediction. This Texas A&M team, front seven, dominant, but you take a look at that secondary, massively improved heading into 2024. Want to do a kind of a conversation of what we saw from a scheme standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, before we get into it. And as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. Massive shout out to the Texas A&M fans. Y'all continue to show a ton of support to the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, would love to hear some of your thoughts, opinions, some breakout players for you guys in the comment section. Dill, I'm going to kick this one off to you. Let's start with the defense, a unit that I'm just fired up about after what we just watched. Some big takeaways from you.
I mean, they look really good. And that defensive line, I think we all knew it would look really good, but I think they've got some more refined pass rushers kind of coming through. I think you see how good Nick Skirton is in terms of getting, not just being disruptive, because they were really disruptive last year, but like beating blocks, getting sackable plays. Cassius Howell, kind of similar thing. And again, you're seeing the steps from Shamar Turner. You're seeing the play from guys like, obviously, DJ Hicks. I mean, that just really good up front. And again, I think they're going to put more sack numbers up, not just be disruptive.
Yeah, and this was a unit that was extremely dominant last year. I look at this Texas A&M defensive line, and for a lot of you guys who listen to, one of the things that I evaluate from defenses is the defensive line. Like, can you stop the run? Can you get after the passer? If you can do those two things with the defensive line, chances are your defense is going to be pretty dominant. You have a guy like Shamar Turner, who we didn't get to see this afternoon, but a guy that we all kind of know what he is. Nick Skirton, I mean, was it dominant in the Big Ten? That's not going to change with him going to the SEC. Shamar Stewart looks to have taken that step in the right direction going into year 3.
I don't know what you do about Shamar Turner and Nick Skirton. I mean, they can line up everywhere on the defensive line. They can be ultra productive from every position. Like those two especially, how versatile they are, how flexible you can be, how much you can do with your defense with those two on the field. I mean, maybe a special twosome there because those two really, they're dynamic.
It's such a good problem to have if you're Mike Elko and this defensive coaching staff, because you can get really creative with how you use these guys. They're all really big. They got heavy hands. You can play them at the 3 tech. You could play Nick Skirton, Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart all on the same field at the same time and not really give up much from a terms of physicality standpoint, but have a ton of pass rush juice with this unit. 2 other shout outs that I want to give on this defensive line. Cassius Howell, coming from Bowling Green. Dill, you noted him a little earlier. A little bit of a different flavor than guys like Nick Skirton or Shamar Stewart, but the juice he has, attacking tackles on that outside shoulder, that's the next level stuff. And then Dill, on the inside, we spent all spring practice talking about DJ Hicks or Brownlaw Dindy. That's not a shot at those guys. Ronas Johnson coming over from, I believe, Wisconsin, a guy that we hadn't really talked about, kind of a depth piece. He looks like he's going to be a damn good football player for this Texas A&M program in 2024 as well.
And again, a guy who maybe does a little bit of a different thing than maybe a Albert Regis or even a DJ Hicks. I mean, just how athletic he looked, how able he was to get in gaps and make plays behind the line. Again, just complimenting what they can do, but building that depth from the inside. Because that was, frankly, if you were going to look at one thing from A&M, maybe you had some questions, was that depth in the middle, especially with those physical guys. But again, the way Ronas Johnson played, I thought DJ Hicks looked good. And again, I think you're going to be just fine there. And obviously that edge position and some of those real high-end stars are,
it might be the best. It might be, because I look at this defensive line and I say Nick Skirton, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner. Those are top 50 picks in the NFL draft, all 3 of them. How many teams do we talk about that have 3 guys on the defensive line that could be top 50? That's what fires me up the most. You look at the linebacker spot. We all know Torian York's a dog. I'm interested to see if they do add a linebacker in the transfer portal. Saw some good things about Scooby Williams, a couple missed tackles. That's what he struggled with in Florida. We'll see how that kind of shakes out. But I think the second storyline is you're pairing up a defensive line that really can get after the passer with a secondary that is absolutely massively improved, not only from a personnel standpoint, but this is a guy, and one of y'all have made a comment in the comment section, Mike Elko. We talk about his time at Duke. What about his time at Texas A&M or Notre Dame as well? Mike Elko has done phenomenal jobs with his secondaries. This secondary for Texas A&M has gotten better from a personnel standpoint, from a talent pool standpoint, but from a schematic standpoint, I didn't see a single blown coverage all game. And I think that's what you're fired up about if you're this Texas A&M fan base heading into 2024 here.
In one thing, I mean, again, the transfers played really well. Marcus Ratcliffe looks like he's going to be really good. Will Lee, BJ Mays, all three, I thought.
Donovan Sanders, too, I'd add.
Like what you kind of thought, but I was really happy to see guys like Dalton Brooks in Javen Thomas look more comfortable on the field, because that was one thing we like. Think about the Jimbo Fisher era. It was a lot of talent, just guys didn't develop in the way you would have wanted to see them. But especially looking at those two guys and seeing how they played, I think especially Javen Thomas, I thought he looked awesome. I think that's, to me, what really stood out. I was like, man, these young guys who you wanted to see play well, they played better than they did last year. And again, that's going to be a big thing moving forward for A&M and being successful.
And I believe we saw Bryce Anderson kick back to the safety spot. And I think one of our question marks was like, how does Mike Elko put this puzzle piece together with all this versatile talent? Like how they're using Marcus Ratcliffe. You noted, like, that is a big fluid athlete that can do a lot of things for defense. I came away with this Texas A&M defense saying I think this unit can be extremely good, because you even look at the explosive passing plays that Texas A&M's offense was able to get. It was good on good. Like, it wasn't blown coverages. It wasn't non-competitive reps. That's how you want your spring game to look. Now, Dill, going to the offensive side of the football, I think before we talk about what we liked, I want to have the conversation about the offensive line, because I think that's probably when you take away this game. This was our big storyline heading into this one, is how does this offensive line look? Now, granted, it was kind of a mixed bag. You had ones working with the twos. I think you had some twos and threes working together. So you didn't have like that continuity, which definitely means a lot for the offensive line. And then secondly, like we just said it, you're going up against one of, if not the best defensive line in the country. That's a hard defensive line to look good on. I didn't answer my questions on the offensive line. So I guess that's probably still your biggest storyline heading into fall camp. Obviously hosting Notre Dame week 1 of the 2024 season.
In the pass pro is kind of I thought disappointing. Yeah, agreed. I thought they ran the ball okay. They opened up some holes. They were using some of those Colin Klein horizontal concepts in their rushing attack, and I thought that looked okay. But I'm kind of with you. I think there are probably a lot of positions that are very much up for grabs. You see they're not done adding guys. They're adding that Utah kid to play in that interior. So, again, I don't think this unit's – it's a work in progress. I think we all kind of knew that. The spring game only confirmed it. They do have some players for sure. And again, I kind of with you. I wish we maybe got to see a number one unit just go to work, because it is really hard when you're not a team that's maybe have that kind of offensive line room that's really deep and really like where you can mix and match. I kind of wish we got to see maybe that one unit and see if they could, like, again, as a whole, be a little bit more blended, because it did look a little disjointed.
I'll say this: I trust Coach Cushing. Like, I think he's done a great job everywhere he's been. Tommy Moth in the strength room. Like, I do trust Mike Elko is going to get this offensive line going. Whether it's in time for 2024, that's probably the question mark you have. They're doing a phenomenal job on the recruiting trail, recruiting the position. Now, Dill, let's talk a little bit about what the Colin Klein offense kind of looked like. You noted it, some horizontal looks, some end arounds, getting your playmakers in space. Dill, my biggest takeaway, using the backs out of the backfield, some of those arrow routes, angle routes out of the backfield. We saw Coach Klein do a phenomenal job utilizing that at Kansas State, and it looks like he's taking that kind of concept, using your running backs as weapons out of the backfield, putting it right in this Texas A&M offense.
Yeah, so you got to see those. I think maybe you wish you got to see a little bit more up the seam. I know Connor Wigman on the first drive, you got to see him rip one, and that's kind of the play you want to see, because that's where Colin Klein, he used a lot of that kind of horizontal motion and horizontal action to open things up down the field, especially through the middle. But again, it is a spring. I think the offensive line probably hampered to an extent some what they would have wanted to do. But I did think you got to see kind of the bones of what they're going to try. It's going to be a little bit use every blade of grass, especially horizontally, and try to take shots down the field. And again, I think one very encouraging thing you got to see was Noah Thomas play like the A&M fans have been telling us he can play like.
We got to we got an issue an apology. We got an issue and apology to Texas A&M fans. Like, we spent all off season, Jahdae Walker, Jabari Barber, Moose Muhammad. I feel like we mentioned every single name in that Texas A&M wide receiver room, and you guys consistently in the comment section were like, y'all, Noah Thomas is that guy. And okay, we're on board. I am on the Noah Thomas train heading into 2024. Bill, you talk about him coming out of high school. You looked at that athletic profile and said, the sky's the limit for this kid. And I think the struggles of the Texas A&M offense the first 2 years didn't really allow him to break out. We made predictions of who the leading pass catcher is going to be for Texas A&M. I took Moose Muhammad. Then I changed my prediction. Like, I think Noah Thomas, you ask about, and that was one of our questions. Like, you got a lot of talent in this room. You got 6 guys that you really like. Who's going to come, step up, be those guys? Noah Thomas took that wide receiver room kind of over this afternoon. I think if you're a Texas A&M fan, like, you're fired up about this kid.
And you got to see a little bit more diverse set of skills, because it did feel like last year you only really saw him when they were going to him down the field, and you knew he had that jump ball ability and some of those vertical stretch abilities. But again, moving with the ball in his hands, making plays, breaking tackles, catching balls on the screen or end arounds, like, you got to see a little bit more of that. That's like, again, like that wide receiver one behavior where you can do ever put me anywhere you want and I'll be a weapon. And that was kind of the thing. This is a really talented room, but you wanted to know who your number one is. I think that's one question the offense did answer.
He's filled out his frame too. You know, like, when he came into college, he's like, all right, this kid needs to eat a couple burgers, get in the weight room. He looks like a college football player now. I think you knew there was going to be some developmental time for him. He looks like a guy going into 2024. Dale, I guess we'll close it out on this. Like, I think most Texas A&M fans know that I'm really excited about Mike Elko, and I'm really excited about what they can do in 2024. If this offensive line can be a solid unit in 2024, this team is going to be extremely dangerous. I'm very excited to see. Maybe they make some moves in the portal. We'll continue to monitor that. They just did this morning. Appreciate the Texas A&M fans rocking with the fellas. Again, y'all continue to show a ton of support to the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.